Hi, my name is Laurie Groh. I'm co-owner at Shoreside Therapies. Today we have Lindsey Kingsley again, and today we're going to talk about fear. So thanks, Lindsey, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, so for those that don't know too, since I'm newer to Shoreside Therapies, but I'm not a new therapist, I actually specialize in anxiety and OCD. So fear is like an underlying passion of mine because it's at the heart of anxiety and OCD. So I figured we could kind of break it down today, know and understand it a little bit better. And then for those that haven't done therapy before, can understand it a little bit more too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, thank you. This is a
Yeah.
topic I love to learn more and more about. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question, which is, what is the emotion of fear?
Yes. Yeah. So fear is the emotion. If everyone's ever seen Inside Out, the guy is really funny. He always runs around like, there's going to be a catastrophe. And so that's what I think of fear is. So it's just a natural response in our body that helps us alert to danger or a threat. But a lot of times people have it where it's out of proportion to an event. So I just think of like, if there's a bear in the woods, like we run, right? It tells us what to do and how to respond. But oftentimes we have a little bit too much of it, and that's where it can come and be problematic. So fears, tend to generalize themselves too. That's where they become problematic. It's kind of, I think of like spilled water, and it kind of just goes everywhere in our lives. And so that's where it's, can be a struggle. And I think of, if you're scared of bears, then you might be scared of coyotes or moose or, any like live animal then. And it can be hard then to manage. So generally people think of like common phobias when they think of fear. So things like spiders, going to the doctors and getting blood drawn like a needle, dogs or heights. And those are really common. Those are natural responses to have. So when we talk about it in the realm of mental health, it's an underlying fear is an underlying emotion to anxiety and OCD. So it's important to know, your triggers, what happens with fear, and just how to manage. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with fear, that's that underlying emotion that does tend to show up in mental health disorders. And so we're going to go a little bit further into that today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how do fears manifest themselves?
Yeah. So usually it gets triggered within the body, or, I think of like scanning your environment. You might see a threat. If you have social anxiety, it might be seeing people, and your body has a response. So generally people can start noticing, I might feel tension or tightness in my body. I might feel like racing heart, might start hyperventilating, kind of like rapid breathing. Sometimes even just trembling, shaking. I think of interviews that I've had. Yep.
Yeah,
just like your hands start shaking. Yep. Or just becoming frozen. Sometimes you get a loss of words. I think of it like you're giving a speech or something, you might just be like, forgot what I'm saying, right? Or a presentation. Yeah. So all of those things can be indicators that we might be having a fear response. Yeah, and it can be really extreme sometimes. So we'll talk about like, what panic attacks are, and sometimes fear left unmanaged can turn to panic attacks, which are really scary if, someone's ever had them before.
Right. Yeah, Lindsey, I remember taking an exam in college and having something like that occur where all of a sudden I blacked out. I couldn't remember anything that was going to be on the exam. And it was a very bizarre experience. And it's based on fear, right? That instinct kicks in, and then we don't have to think when we're in a fear space, right? We're supposed to move or freeze or hide or something, not finish an exam. So
yeah,
that took a minute, definitely took a minute for me to get back to where I needed to go.
Yeah, you can be at a loss for words sometimes, and your mind goes blank.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Yeah.
So what is a panic attack?
Yep. So the reason why I bring this up is because I've had many people that don't understand sometimes fear and that they've had a panic attack. If you've never had a panic attack, it's really scary, and people, it can mimic like a heart attack. When I worked in intake in a hospital, we get people going into the ER thinking, they had a heart attack or, a stroke or something like that. And truly it's their body physiologically like responding to, danger or panic or being overwhelmed. And so left unmanaged can turn to a panic attack, which is just that short duration of intense symptoms that kind of flood your body. So it's when you feel overwhelmed mentally, physically, and people who have had panic attacks, recognize that I can't breathe. It might kind of feels like I'm suffocating, or the walls are closing in. Feels like, that you might die. And so you feel completely out of control of your body. And that usually exacerbates the symptoms, causing more, shakiness, not being able to breathe. And so being able to, it's really helpful to start understanding like, oh, I've had those before, right? And then knowing kind of what to do. Like, so working on sort of therapy can come in, working on, grounding skills, mindfulness, being able to manage, understanding triggers and other things. So they're quite common for people who struggle with anxiety disorders. And so, knowing them and knowing how to manage can just bring about more confidence,
Right. Yeah. Cause it goes in this cycle, right? Of you're feeling all these intense feelings. It's really scary. You're right. Like anyone that's ever experienced it will say it's maybe the scariest thing they've been through, and they don't want to have it again. And so that can sometimes bring up the actual anxiety and panic attack because of the anxiety about having that panic attack.
Yep. Yeah. I just think of with COVID, and the pandemic, like a lot of fears, right? There's a lot of things, that we're being told to, avoid. And, then when, it happens or things like that, it can just be, really, really overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So why are my fears in some situations stronger? I'm right out of my glasses. Stronger than others. So why would that be?
Yeah. So I get that question a lot, especially with like OCD and when people have different like compulsions and that they're like, but it's really sometimes centralized to one thing, but people then go like, is it different with the treatment, having different fears? And so we always say like, it can have a different theme of what we're, fearful of, but usually the treatment is generally the same. So when we know that fear attaches to our values and the things that we care about, that is when, things like your family or, fear of your family dying, things like that, they attach themselves, fears, I think of little people or something, like attach ourselves to things that we care about. So I'm going to throw a little sci-fi back in here. I like to watch Stranger Things. And so if anyone's watched it, it's really popular right now on Netflix. They have the Demogorgon, and right now it's like the spider monster and things like that. I think of that with fear and anxiety because it just attaches to everything that's around you. And so that's where it becomes generalized, and people say it's attached to something that I'm close. I'm scared that something is going to happen, or I'm worried about something. Examples of like, moms with new babies, we have this response where we need to protect and keep this little child safe, and they're outside, in the world, that it's really scary. And so moms suffer with like intrusive thoughts and, fear that I'm going to drop my baby or something bad is going to happen to my baby. And so it's normal to have those fears, and normal that those things might attach to things that you care about more than other things. And so it can be confusing. I think of like a big project at school or something, situations often that have a lot of pressure, or putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, or fear of rejection, say from a partner, or being liked or accepted. Those things, our worries are going to be a little bit stronger in those situations.
Yeah, it makes so much sense that it pulls towards those things that we care most about. How you talked about water at the beginning and kind of pouring over everything, and then it goes to the things that matter most usually, right? I definitely remember that with my little ones when they were babies, like that fear of, are they going to stop breathing in the middle of the night? And that can be pretty intense, and hard to move through. Of like, well, you can't sit there the whole night, and listen.
Yeah.
There's a point where you have to move away from it and figure out what's the plan. How do I let go of some of these fears?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So how do I know if I need help? So I was just talking about that fear, right? Of when my little ones were babies and waiting for them to breathe and wondering, and in the middle of the night, maybe checking on them. How do you know when that's getting so bad that you might need help?
Yeah. And I, again, question that we get all the time with, people who've never, gone to therapy. And I would say anytime you want, it's too much and you want to change, or it's interfering with your life, or you're not, happy, or you're struggling to get through the day without anxiety, and it's just kind of, again, taken over in my entire life. anytime it's life interfering is time that we can get help in therapy. You know, if it's getting in the way of work, forming relationships, making friends. I think, you know, now with going places, we might have a lot of fear around going places, calling people. I always say the sooner the better getting into therapy, because, you know, that's one of those things, anxiety can generalize very quickly. I've seen people, you know, that were able to do, you know, functioning at their highest level, doing, you know, executive type jobs, and just being paralyzed when we left it, you know, untreated, because, you know, we become in a bubble. We're not able to leave the home. We've just, those fears just are exasperated. So I think any time where your life is having a negative impact, that's a good time, right? So, you know, it's just for yourself, is recognizing like, it's a lot. I need some tools. I need some help or some assistance. You know, don't hesitate. You know, that 15-minute phone call, we can, you know, just decide if it's something that you need or not, you know, and we can help in that way. Yeah.
Right. I think that part's so important too, that it does tend to get worse because our natural instinct is to avoid those things. So then it's, that monster gets bigger and bigger and bigger typically, and starts to spread on more things. So that does make sense of the sooner the better. And you're right too, whenever that person wants to get in, get in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here.
There's no real rules. Like you can't come to therapy if it's only at this level. You can come at any time.
Yep. Good point. Yep. Yeah.
All right. So what are some ways that I can harness my anxiety? I love this question.
Yeah. Right. Like approachable things. So number one, seek support. I think, especially, you know, I work with young moms, things like that a lot, is like, we often wait thinking, again, it'll get better. So seek support. Maybe if it's not a therapist, you know, friends, talk about what's going on. Sometimes with any emotion, just talking about things can be helpful. So, you know, just learning new ways to deal with it. Obviously, number one, seeking out a trained therapist that does this stuff all the time and can help you kind of fill your toolbox with things. And maybe there's just something we haven't tried before. Learn about your triggers. So their triggers are just basically people, places, things that cause anxiety. And my favorite is avoid avoiding. So, you know, like we talked about, it does tend to cycle. So while avoidance is a natural response when we're feeling anxious, avoidance does make it worse and make that cycle bigger, and your anxiety becomes stronger and stronger. It's like feeding the beast. And so we always like the phrase Nike. So, you know, if we can't do it, if whatever activity is, we always say, just do it. Just do the thing that you are scared. And I know that is simple. And when it's out of control, it's not that easy. So that's why a therapist can help you create a hierarchy, doing exposures, working to decrease avoidance and, you know, reduce rituals, things like that. And learn to, we say, kind of lean into anxiety. Again, our natural response is to pull away. I don't like this feeling. I don't want to do this, you know, so we kind of just like go in the background. So we always say lean in. The reason why is you can't really go around feelings. They're going to pop up in other ways in your life. It's kind of like, you know, whack-a-mole at the, you know, game. Once you get one down, another one comes up in a different area.
Right.
So when we say lean into it, we mean like, you know, breathing into it's anxiety, it's a feeling, it's normal, and, you know, working on ways, and a therapist can help kind of coach you with that. And then practicing relaxation skills. So, you know, I think people are like, well, I've tried breathing, and I'm like, you know, it's definitely a practice. We have to, you know, do that over and over again. And so relaxations, emotions are stored in the body, help with that fight or flight response. So if you reduce that fight or flight response, you're going to feel more confident in being able to manage. My favorite, talking back to your internal voice. So, you know, if you're saying this presentation is going to go so bad, you know, no, it's not. Maybe I might do really well this time, right? So that's just kind of like, we all have this internal dialogue, and being able to put a name or face to your anxiety so that you're able to kind of talk back to it in that way.
Yeah, then, I love that. I love that. Yeah, of like, no, it's gonna go fine, or it's not a yes or no. You know, it's not good or bad. It could be 90% this one, 90% good or 90% bad. But I think sometimes having that percentage makes a difference.
Yep. Yep. And then lastly, sometimes keeping a daily thought record. So if you do start therapy, sometimes that's what we encourage, is like to keep a, you know, trail of what your thoughts are, what your triggers are, because we can't really start working on something until we know about like, what is it? How much is it happening? Is it happening a lot? And I think especially I've had people kind of minimize their anxiety. Like, it's not that bad, but then I, you know, see them and they're like flooded with anxiety on their face and body. And so, you know, it's knowing that, you know, getting to build that awareness and insight through therapy and all of that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think having that record and having the data can be really helpful to make sure that you're improving and where you're improving and what's actually going on. So I love that one as well.
Yeah.
So thanks, Lindsey.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, anyone can reach out. Like I said, it's my specialty. I'm comfortable with all those things, and yeah, I'm happy to share.
Awesome. Well, thanks for talking with me today, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to reach out to Lindsey, you can go to our site at shoresightherapies.com, and you can schedule right online, free phone consult or video consult. And then you can also schedule right online.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.